For this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to work out question number 14 in chapter 6, section 2 of the homework. I will now read you the question. According to a survey, 64% of murders committed last year were cleared by arrest or exceptional means. 50 murders committed last year are randomly selected, and the number cleared by arrest or exceptional means is recorded. In part A, we will find the probability that exactly 41 of the murders were cleared, and in part B, we will find the probability that between 36 and 38 of the murders inclusive were cleared. And in part C, we are asked, would it be unusual if fewer than 18 of the murders were cleared? Why or why not? Now, it is very important to take note of the fact that our 64% here is our probability, and we're going to turn that into a probability, which should be a decimal, and we're also going to take note that they are looking at 50 murders. I'm sorry, it's getting fuzzy here. And the 50 murders would be considered our sample space. So first thing you need to do to stay on track is to write those things down. Your probability is 0.64 and your n, your sample space, is 50. And if you remember in part A, they ask us what the probability is for the 41st person, the 41st murder that it was cleared. So what we need to do here is either work that out by using this equation, which would be, you would plug in your 41 here, and then you would type in all of these little guys in these little spaces, but that can be quite tedious, and we are asked to do it a number of times throughout this homework. So instead, I'm just going to walk you through how to find that on your calculator, and you're going to want to go to Binom PDF, which is accomplished by hitting second shift FARS and scrolling all the way down to Binom PDF. And then you're going to want to type in your values in this way here, which is your n, your sample space, your p, your probability, and your x, what they're asking you for, which here is 41. So we type it in this way in your calculator. You would type in 50.64 and then 41. And then the magic button enter would get you this number here. It's much larger, but I was asked to reduce it down to 4 decimal places. Now, just to look at this in proper perspective and not get lost in the whole of the numbers, we're going to look back at the question, see what it's asking us. The probability that exactly 41 of the murders were cleared is 0.0029. So that's what we're looking at here. We're just looking at the 41st case. Now in part B, we're asked something a little bit differently. We're asked that the probability that between 36 and 30 of the murders inclusive were cleared. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to do the same thing, but for the values 36 through 38. So we're going to let x be 36, let x be 37, and let x be 38. And we're going to go through the same functions that we did up here in part A, but we're going to do it for these values here. So here are the I typed it all in and I worked it all out, and here's what I got. I added them, and this is what I got when I added them up. Because that's what the question was asking me, is to begin with here in part A, they asked me for just this one event, so to speak, and for this one they're asking me for 3, which is why we're adding. And moving on to part C, we are asked, would it be unusual if fewer than 18 of the murders were cleared? Why or why not? So let's look at how to figure that out here. We're going to want to look at the mean and the standard deviation. And in getting our mean here, what we're going to want to do is we're going to multiply the sample by the probability. And our sample over here, we're just plugging it right in. So our sample is 50 and the probability is 64, so you're just typing it right in there and working that out, and that's your mean. And your standard deviation, you type in your sample and your mean, which we already figured out is 32, and then you subtract your probability, or 1 from your probability, and then you work all of that out. Of course, you're going to square root it, and that is your standard deviation. So if we just look at some hints over here, our options, we see it's asking us to figure out how many standard deviations away it is from the mean, and simply what we do here is we're going to want to subtract once from this number. So we're going to subtract the 339 from the 32, and that will be your first standard deviation away from the mean. So we have 32 minus 3.39 equals 28.61, and that's your first standard deviation away from the mean. And to get your second standard deviation away from the mean, you're going to take your 26.61, which is your first, and you're going to subtract that by the standard deviation yet again, which is 3.39, and that would be 25.22. So back over here, I said that it would be an unusual event because 18 is less than 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So that's just what we calculated over here. If you look at some of these other options that you have, they're not true. Yes, would it be unusual? It would be unusual because 18 is between 2 standard deviations away from the mean and 2 standard deviations away from the mean. Well, of course, this is the negative and this is the positive end of the spectrum. But that's not true because 18 is less than what we calculated, which was 25.22. So you can just run your answer that you found through all of these options, and you can just prove all of them wrong and find the one that is correct. And I hope this video has helped.